Welcome to this DigiTeRRI conference. I think some of our participants are still on the way here. However, we have a very dense program, and therefore we have to start. We encounter digital technologies everywhere. We have electronic devices, we have digital processes in many fields. Industry and business work for and with the digital technologies. In science and research work for and with digital technologies. The businesses have implemented various processes for that. The public sector work with these technologies. We have the public transport system, we have where there is a lot of digital processes there, the health system, our funding system, and so on and so on. The civil society uses these tools for communicating, for streaming, shopping. So we have this everywhere. Hardly anybody can escape. However, we have to shape this development. We have to shape the future of this digital transformation. The question is, how can we develop these technologies? How can we provide and create strategies so that these technologies support the prosperity of the industry and business, support the success in science and research, work for the well-being of the civil society, and also for with great responsibility for the environment. How can we develop this, and how can we attract industry and business in regions? How can we attract young people, highly educated people in regions, and also science organizations and research organizations in regions, so that there is prosperity and well-being? With these aspects, with these considerations, we have worked in DigiTeRRI Project. I am Marianne Hörlesberger. I work for the AIT Austrian Institute of Technology, and therefore the Center for Innovation Systems and Policy. And I am the coordinator of DigiTeRRI Project. And this conference today would spotlight how we have worked in DigiTeRRI, will highlight the achievements we have done in DigiTeRRI, and the brilliant, the great DigiTeRRI team will present this step by step. However, this conference goes beyond this project, beyond DigiTeRRI. You have the possibility, you will listen to professors, highly recognized experts, managers in various fields, in the field of digitalization, in the field of responsible research and innovation, in the field of regional development, in education and public employment service. You will can talk to and listen to managers from the Centers for Digital Transformation. You will meet and talk and listen to managers, to company owners who have implemented RRI. I am very glad that this conference can take place physically. We have learned to do video conferences. We know about the advantage of online meetings. However, we also experienced that online meetings, there we miss something we only can get when we meet face to face. This is great. and I'm very grateful for that. However, we can also, but we stream also this conference to the world outside. The participants can listen to our presentations, to our outcome, and to what we discuss here on the stage. The AIT team in DigiTeRRI comes from Innovation Systems and Policy Center. We are about 50 in this center. However, AIT is a large organization, the largest research organization outside the university in Austria, with about 1,400 employees. And it is structured in 7 centers. And one of these centers is the Center for Digital Safety and Security, also, besides Innovation Systems and Policy. Digital Safety and Security Center focus on IT services, data security, on blockchain technologies, on artificial intelligence technologies, and so on. And it is structured in several business units. And one of the business units is corporate digital technologies. And the head of this unit is Mario Drobics. We are very glad to have him here today for this keynote. He has a doctoral degree in technical mathematics. He is a management board member of the Gaia X Hubs Austria. And he is also the head of a working group for Internet of Things in OVE-GIT. I'm really glad we could manage to attract him to give us this keynote for the opening of this conference. Well, give him a warm welcome, please.
Thank you, Marianne, for this very kind introduction and also the possibility to speak here and give the opening talk to this very interesting conference. Marianne has already pointed out I'm head of the unit for cooperative digital technologies, and that's also what I will talk about today. About digital transformation and how digital collaboration will shape the future of this digital world. I think this can provide some kind of a background to further discussions. So I'm trying really to give you some scope how the digital landscape is currently changing, how it will evolve over the next years, and what possibilities are there that might be contributing to supporting the regions, to support growth in the regions, and to have a better collaboration between regions, within regions, and enhance the capabilities and the quality of living in the regions. So when we talk about digital transformation, it's my strong belief that this really helps to support a sustainable but also local development. And that means that it can provide an holistic view, so not only in specific sectors or on specific problems, but that by having this transformational approach, it can really provide this holistic view and integrating all the different aspects that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the business aspects, with the social aspects, with the environmental aspects, and we have to balance them to have a sustainable growth, and we have to really look at the whole value chains that we establish. And by having these digital tools and by utilizing digital transformation, we can do this in a responsible way. And that's why I think that digital transformation is really important, and that's why I will talk about this now in the next half hour. So what do we mean when we talk about digital transformation? Isn't this something that we have been doing for the last 50 years when we digitalized our production facilities, our offices, and so on? There are some substantial changes in what we are talking about now in digital transformation and what digitalization was about in the past. The first phase of digitalization was really looking at individual components. Yeah, we had one machine that was being digitalized, so you could automatically do the drilling or the welding in the process. You had the business doing the accounting digitally. All that was more or less isolated tasks that have been optimized using digital technologies. That was a first step. It was an important step. It already revolutionized how we work, how we use machines to support our work, but it was only the first step. The second step then was when we connected them, when we put together machines, created workflows within the shop floor, within the factories, integrated business processes so that the buying could access data from the accounting or from the stores and identify, okay, how can we optimize our processes within the company. And that had a very strong focus on the efficiency, yeah, to really look, okay, how can we optimize the processes in our unit, in our company, and how can we use digital technologies to optimize the communication, yeah, and link things together within a company. This was the second step. It already made a lot of improvements in terms of speed, in terms of quality, in terms of capabilities, but it didn't change substantially what the companies are doing. In the third step now, in what we call digital transformation, it's really about expanding this communication, expanding this exchange, providing this holistic view, going beyond the company, beyond the single unit, and interlinking this with the whole ecosystem. So we are now not only looking at one company or one institution, but we are really creating digital ecosystems where we can take all the different components and fuse into a single ecosystem where we exchange data, where we can grab knowledge from other partners, and where we can provide information to them in exchange. And this allows us really to create this holistic view. And when we talk about holistic view, this also means a holistic approach to innovation. Yeah, so we are not only talking now about technology, but we are much more and focusing really on the human. What is the value we create? Yeah? What is the aim? Why we are doing this? What are the benefits? How do we have to shape things in order to be beneficial? And what is beneficial needs to be discussed, of course. Yeah, this is a discussion that we have to make with the society, with our customers, to identify what the actual needs are, and then to offer the according products and services. And in this sense, technology just provides the background. It creates opportunities. Yeah, technology can solve so many problems and has so many variations how it can be used that we really need to look at what do we want to do first, and then ask how can technology support us, and not the other way around. And the third perspective now that this enables us is also to modify the business processes behind it. Because when we look at the value we create, the question is the solution for that then really a product, or is it something else? Is it about, we have, for example, had a project with a company that was creating industrial ovens. And you would think, okay, an industrial oven is something very traditional that you build and that you provide then to your customers. But they have found out that the main problem for the customer was when they bought such an oven. Yeah, it's a very big investment. and many customers struggled to really utilize the whole potential of this investment. So it was not used all the time. So they had open production capacities that they could offer other customers. But of course, no company wants to share if they have a good usage of their equipment or not. Yeah? So you need to create some mechanisms that this can be done in a trustful way. And what we created was an auction system that basically hid all the details about the company that is providing this capacity, but that allowed them to put that on a marketplace where other companies that needed these capabilities, these resources, could bid for that and then utilize this. And in that way, this company, which was producing these ovens, suddenly transformed into a service company. It was just the first step, but it shows the idea how even traditional companies can benefit of having more information from their customers, of understanding the actual needs from them, and then transform this into new business processes. And I think this really shows the potential that is in there when you talk, when you exchange, when you identify where are the needs, and then optimize the technology and the business models accordingly. So this, of course, also reflects when we look at the structure, how digital ecosystems look like. Yeah? In the past, we had the data silos. Yeah? Each company had their data storage, and that was more or less closed systems, and nobody could access them. Then came the internet, and the companies that regularly deal with each other, they exchange the data. They have interfaces to do so, but what we are experiencing now is really this creation of the data ecosystem. And that means that we have really this big bubble that is shown on the slide, where all the information can be exchanged easily. You might think, okay, the internet is already providing this, but this is really only the base layer. We need to build up on that, and I will explain that on the next slide in more detail. So really to enable this exchange and make it much easier, because currently it's a big effort to exchange data. We lack trust, we lack the standards to do so, and we lack the infrastructure to really identify what is available in these data spaces that we are creating. When we want to collaborate, of course, it's always a matter of values. And I already talked about trust. This is, I think, one of the key ingredients that it needs so that people are willing to collaborate. But when we look at the European level, there are also some core values behind this idea. And one is really this federated approach. So this is something also that differentiates Europe from, for example, Asia or the US-American approach, that the idea is to have things federated, to keep them in proximity at the regions, at the companies, that they keep control of their data, but that they have then the sovereignty to decide whom to share this data with, and that they can take control, also the consumers, yeah, that they can take control over their data and decide what do I want to do with it, where do I want it to be stored, and whom want to make profit with this data, and how can I also make profit with this data. So these are the questions that have to be answered, and in order to enable that, we need to be transparent. So transparent in that sense that we have standards that are easily applicable, that are not somewhere closed, where we have to make a huge investment to utilize them, that we have transparent regulations so that everybody knows what are the legal and regulatory foundations for this collaboration, and then we create an open ecosystem where everybody can easily contribute in a trustful way. And this provides then the foundation for local value creation. Because when we have this collaboration. This opens a lot of new opportunities also for regional support. So one possibility is to create local value chains so that we have separate production steps that are then linked together so that even small companies can address bigger tasks in terms of complexity because they have additional capabilities and they can act on the market as a single player that provides the whole value chain. The same applies in terms of scalability. If companies or local providers act together on the market, they can deal with larger demands easily because they have more flexibility, they can collaborate, they can act as a single unit on the market. And it also empowers circular economy. Yeah? We're always talking about looking at how to create sustainable value chains, but for that we need data. We need to understand what resources are there, how things are used, and how they can then be reused again. Product passports are a good example. How this is then supported on a strategic and organizational level. We are now working, for example, on battery passports, where we look at how can we store the data from the battery production, from the resources, but also the plan or the architecture, how this is mapped so that it can easily be deintegrated. Then we take the information from the usage of the battery to see how are materials degrading, in what state is the battery, and at the end this data can then be used to identify what value do we have still there, how can it be used in other use cases, how can it be refurbished, recycled, whatever is needed. And by that, this data supports creating value chains, creating local value creation. Two use cases, a little bit more detailed. One is about waste management. I already talked about the batteries, which is a little bit abstract. This is more concrete. We had the case with a production company that they were producing waste which was not clearly, assigned to a single material because they had varying production content. So the waste was not used optimally then by the recycling companies because they just dropped the container there and they had to deal with whatever was in there. Then the idea came up, okay, can't we link maybe some data from the production to the waste recycling company so that they can take more use of the waste? And so they created this data ecosystem. They transferred this data that the production company already had, but never really thought of valuable in their environment. But when providing it to the recycling company, it certainly has a very specific value because they know much better what is in this container, how they can recycle the materials in there. And by doing so, they increased the value of the waste and of course optimized also the reuse of the materials. Another use case, it's from a region in Salzburg in the Austrian Alps, which is a tourist region. Yeah, and there's a ski resort high on the mountains. It's about 1,500 meters in the mountains. So it's quite isolated there, but there are a lot of tourists coming there. And of course, providing energy there is quite tricky and quite demanding. And so the energy company needs always to have some reserves, so to provide the heat in winter, depending on how cold it gets, how many people are there, what the conditions are. And so currently they had the situation that they had to store the material there, and sometimes they had problems in providing the heat because they did not have enough bio material for this heating. And then the idea came, okay, actually the hotels, they know how many people are coming. We have the weather forecast. So actually we can do quite a good prediction of what is to be expected in the next couple of weeks. and so they created this data space, which is a part of a larger initiative in the region, where they want to have different data providers, data users being connected. But here it was the energy company, the hotel company, meteorological company, and an IT provider. And they linked this data to create some models to predict how much energy is needed for heating this village in the Alps. And this helps them to optimize their resource investment, to create better support for the partnering hotels, so that they have the heating and they have a better planability of the resources needed. And this is also enabled just by providing the data that was actually already there, but thinking about, okay, what is our actual problem? What would we need and whom would we need to collaborate in order to solve that, and then providing a technical infrastructure to do so. And if this is not just restricted to a single use case, where you just send data to one partner, but that when you create an open system, then you have also an innovation space, because then other companies can come up with new ideas how to utilize this data and provide other services. So in this tourism example, there's a huge potential for mobility services. If I know when tourists are coming to the village, if I know when the trains are arriving, then I can plan ahead with transport capabilities and be more flexible, be more service-oriented. And so we have a lot of interlinks there. So what does it need to create this, this digital transformation? Because it always sounds easy when you have established it, but providing the ground is quite tricky. And we found out that, first of all, there needs to be a willingness to collaborate. And that's also why we're trying to collect these use cases, to really illustrate the benefits of that, because it's always, or it has to be a mutual benefit. Nobody wants to give away just for the sake of it, but there are benefits, have to be benefits on both or all sides. And so this willingness to collaborate is something that really needs to be worked on, where you have to convince companies, partners to collaborate and to show them that this is for the benefit of all. Then we need data. If we don't have any information to share, it's hard to establish. And I'm putting this here because often this data is somewhere, or this knowledge is somewhere, but it is not accessible. So it's also about making that accessible in a quality that is usable. It's not just about having a lot of data, but it's also about the quality. And so thinking about, okay, what is the actual insight that I need from the data, and can this data that I currently have provide that? I might have some measuring data from this energy production, but that might not be what I actually need. I might need some smart meters or some measurements of the energy consumption in the hotels. So also thinking about then what data really helps to address the needs that we want to solve. And as a foundation, I've already mentioned it a couple of times, we need to establish trust, because if companies do not trust each other, if partners do not trust each other, it's very hard to collaborate. And this trust needs to be between partners, but we also need to trust the technology, because establishing trust between companies often refers to the trust in technology, that only certain information is shared, that the other data is kept private, and also that we have regulations that are ensuring that this data is used purposely and not in another context, or not shared with third parties. So we really need this combination of trust between parties, trust in technology, and the regulations that provide the framing for this trust. Then we can start and create this understanding of what the problem really is about, how this ecosystem works, what are the mutual benefits of the parties, so that we can create this use case. And then for implementing that, of course, we also have to build the know-how. Yeah? Who can moderate that process of this business creation? Who can has the know-how in setting up the technical infrastructure? Who can maintain it? Yeah? We need to cover all that, and we have to provide the expertise locally so that also this know-how can be applied over time, but also can be integrated into the local development. And this is something we currently address with the European Digital Innovation Hubs, which is specifically targeted to regions and to SMEs, where we try to do this capacity building and also work on this trust by having a test before invest environment where companies can try things out, where they can learn from other companies, but this capability building is also a very important part in this initiative. Then I already mentioned it, we need this regulatory frameworks, and this need to be clear and transparent, because otherwise a sustainable business model will not work. And then we can create the different partnerships we need really to implement it. We need a technology supplier, we need the contributors, but we also need the financing to get this started. And there are currently a lot of funds being available on the European level, but I think, and Austria I think is a good example here, you can also create really specific funding here for specific aims. We just talked prior to this talk about the upcoming initiatives in Austria, which creating a data space for energy, for mobility, yeah, to test this out, to identify where can we create value in these domains, and how can we link things together so that we have more resource efficiency, that we have economic growth, and bring society forward. So to establish all that, we need infrastructure, yeah? And of course we have the networks, yeah? So connectivity is the core foundation, and the big change that we now have with the evolution of the internet is when I want to send data to someone else, I don't have to create a line, I don't have to call him, but I have a real infrastructure that I can rely on, and I just need to know the address of my partner, and I can send him the data, I can give him a phone call, whatever. This is what infrastructure is about, yeah? That I have the flexibility to act and don't have to establish the foundations. The next level are cloud services. When I need processing capabilities, when I need storage capabilities, I can just access that from the cloud centers, and I don't have to establish the technical infrastructure. I just need to sign a contract, and then I can utilize these resources. But what's new now is that we now have to create this infrastructure for these collaboration spaces, because otherwise we have to do everything from scratch again. We have to create the contracts, we have to create the technical interoperability frameworks. And now we have the initiatives, Gaia-X, I will talk about on the next slides, FiWare is also something like that, that really support these business processes, so that it's really about talking about whom do I want to collaborate with, what are the key framing conditions, but then I can rely on this infrastructure where all the key problems are already solved. And that's why it's important that, and this is something that is new, that is now available, which was not available a couple of years ago, and which provides us new opportunities also for regions, and especially for regions, because utilizing this is much easier. You don't have to do the hard work, it's already there. So it enables a fast take-up and the scalability of the solutions, yeah, because you can rely on that, but you need these tools being available. And this fits in the European strategy for data, where the European Commission is really following a plan how to create these data ecosystems, yeah, how to provide the data, how to utilize the data. And I have to look at the time, so I'm skipping this slide and coming directly to Gaia-X. Marianne has already mentioned, I'm part of the management board of the Austrian Gaia-X Hub, and Gaia-X is really about providing this infrastructure. It's about enabling European collaboration, ensuring security, protecting the rights, and being transparent. And in that way, it tries to implement the European core values, provide framework and tools to implement this data economy on these different levels. Yeah? So really from the legal foundations to technical bits and pieces where the reference implementations are open source, so you can really use them, easily implement them, and they provide you all the elements you need for a federation. So to identify your parties, to identify where data and services are available, and then to create smart services based on that. And there are a lot of material available on the Gaia-X website, but it's basically the initial documents were the specification, completely transparent, everyone can access that. Then there is different development initiatives in France, in Germany, all over Europe, where they're creating now these open source components that can be used to create these federations. And then there will also be some quality assurance labeling so that you can really rely on the quality of the services provided, because they will have a quality label assigned to them, and then you can trust these services. And by having this framework, you can then create these data spaces and interlink them. And I think this is the new opportunity. As I said, we have the energy networks, for example, but we can use the data also in the mobility context. Or we might have production facilities that are energy dependent, and we can use this data now in a different context. And in that way, this creates a new innovation ecosystem, because it lifts things up. It gives you the possibility to create new services, to create new ideas for the benefit of the region and for society. And this is already the end of my talk. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mario. I think he has addressed many aspects we have worked with in DigiTeRRI. It is really a great interlinkage, and I'm really grateful that we have such a group thinking in this way at AIT. And and you all, we have participants from Sweden, speakers from Sweden, we have some from France, from Germany, from Spain, and from Austria. And so we can interlink all this, and thank you so much that you could make it, and this is really great work. Thanks.
Thank you for the invitation.
Okay, so before we have this nice talks from the experts outside the DigiTeRRI project, we introduce the DigiTeRRI project now. First, a short overview, and afterwards we go into details regarding the methodologies, how we worked, and later we talk about what we have achieved. DigiTeRRI stands for Responsible Research and Innovation Approach for transitioning the traditional industry regions into digitalized industry territories. This is an European H2020 project under the program of SWAS, Science with and for Society. We started in January 2020, few months before the pandemic started, and we will finish this December. DigiTeRRI has intended to elaborate a framework and develop roadmaps for the transitioning into digitalized industry innovation ecosystems in 3 European regions. And this we have done by applying responsible research and innovation approach. And it should contribute to co-create resilient innovation ecosystems characterized by the degrees of openness, democratic accountability, and responsiveness. The three engaged territories are Värmland in Sweden, Grand Est in France, and Styria in Austria. And we have, in each of the three territories, we have triple helix representatives. In Sweden, we have the universities, Karlstad University, then we have the Värmland County in the consortium, and the business cluster paper province. In Grand Est, we have Grand du Neuf from the government side. We have University Lorraine from the science side, and we have the cluster Materialia from Metz. And in Styria, we have Montagne University Leoben. Then we have the Center for Applied Research, Startup and Close to Business Center. And we have the municipality Bruck an der Mur. And we have three further partners. This is the Nordland Research Institute in Bodø in Norway. They are responsible more for the technical background, the theoretical background, the framework. And you see everywhere we do all these graphic presentations, our internet, all the communication, all that is done by VIDU. They are located in Barcelona in Spain. And AIT, the Center for Innovation Systems and Policy, is responsible for, on the one hand for, you will see for mapping, but also for the road mapping process and coordinating this project. Where does DigiTeRRI come from? Actually, the core idea comes from Brigitte Christ from the Montagne University. Once she talked to me, let's do a project, because she was coordinating IMRRI at that time. And then, of course, it comes from the digital transformation wave, it's clear. And then we have the SWAFS call, the Science Wisdom for Society. And we, I think this was the platform, or is the platform for responsible research and innovation. And then we have already had experiences in two previous RRI projects. This is IMRRI. This is about the webs of innovation value chains in additive manufacturing. This was a research project. And we analyzed here in this innovation webs of webs of innovation value chains where are openings for RRI. And then we had DigiTeRRI Project. Nien Nguyen from Nordland Research Institute was coordinating this project. And with this background, we have learned, we have already some experiences in how to do responsible research and innovation, and we transferred this knowledge to a digital transformation project, how we can do this. You see here in the slide the overlap. We have the partners, Materialia, Montagne University, Nordland Research Institute, and AIT in IMRRI also. And then in DigiTeRRI we have Nordland Research Institute, V2 and AIT. Yeah, I think I can be a little bit fast with the slide. What do we understand? Digitalisation, digitization, analog to digital, digitalisation, then we have this digital processes in a broader context, and then we interlinked all these processes, then we have the transformation. So this is a short understanding about how we do this. We can say the whole DigiTeRRI project is a road mapping process. We have these 4 phases. We start with stock taking and mapping, so that we have a background of the current situation in this field. And then we have the phase of developing vision statements, this, and also identifying the stakeholders we wanted to work with. Then we have the phase of developing the goals, the objectives, the gaps, and the actions needed to follow, to go into the direction of the vision statement and the objectives. And then we have implemented the implementation phase, and we have already implemented 12 actions during this project period in 3 territories, in each of the 3 territories. And of course, this is embedded in a framework, in a theoretical framework, and also we have an evaluation task there, and yeah, we monitor also what has we have achieved. Responsible research and innovation, you know here all the experts. I don't have to explain it in more details, but I say, yeah, this is the bridge the gap between science and society. It anticipates and assesses the potential impacts on and social implications. And then, of course, it is about the researchers, the scientists should align their work more with the responsibility for society and environment. Okay, and the DigiTeRRI approach in this project is, the RRI approach is, the core idea is to work with the stakeholders, the affected stakeholders in the innovation ecosystem. And they have to co-create together their future. This is the core idea. And how have we done this? We have the actors in the innovation ecosystem. This is quite a challenge to get them to work with us. And then we have forward-looking methodology. And we say this addresses, this works exactly what RRI would like to do. And we say the actors of the innovation ecosystems, we have science and researchers, we have educators, we have industry and business, we have public administration and the policymakers, and we have the civil society. And forward-looking methodologies are anticipative and reflective, open and transparent, responsive and adaptive, and diverse and inclusive. And we also address the so-called RRI keys, the ethics, gender equality, open access, public engagement, and science education. And we do this in this project with road mapping. And we have developed these roadmaps. And you see here, these are the vision statements of the territories. This is Värmland, this is Styria, Grand Est is there, yeah. And so that we could be successful in the 3 territories, we have had a coordinator, and in Värmland this is Karlstad University with Ayman, and Grand Est is Grand Neuf with Jean-Jacques, and in Styria, Montagne University with Brigitte Christ. And this conference, DigiTeRRI, this conference, this morning, you will learn about more about the methodology first, in the first session. In the next one, you get insight into the roadmaps that have been developed. And then after lunch, then we have the graphic art, how we use this transformation from spoken to writing to pictures to graphics. This was important. And in the evening, we have a poster session about the implemented actions already, what we have done. And tomorrow we have a session about the transformation in Styria and the evaluation approach and the impact of DigiTeRRI. Yeah, and we have a lot of interesting other talks, of course, but this was the focus on the project. So I think, thank you so much. And yeah, and I forgot first, Angel, you see we have no paper now because it's DigiTeRRI, digitalization. And therefore I ask Angel to tell you how you get all the information you need here.
Hi, everybody. So as Marianne said already, we believe really in digitalization. As you see, this is a paperless conference, so you are not giving up anything, no tote bag, no documents. So everything is actually in an app. It's not an app. It's a mobile-based website. So you basically have to scan this QR. QRs are also distributed outside, so you can at any time. And also, you have them here as well. It's quite tiny. I don't know if some mobiles might be able to catch this. But what you will find is the agenda for the 2 days. That's what you have, and some information about the city, the transport. And there's also, you can take a look at one of the booklets with the roadmaps and the visions, the artwork we have created in the project, a video made by Mario and Nien, actually about what is RRI. I really encourage you to go and check it, and a little bit of the bios of the different speakers in the conference, so you get to know them better. So I really recommend you to go and check, and so you can be up to date. Thank you. That's it.
Now we go into the first session. We talk about the methodology we have applied in this project. And for this reason, I invite first Manfred Paier. He is the deputy head of the research field of innovation, dynamics and modeling. And he does a lot of mapping about also the monitoring of knowledge and the knowledge dynamics. And he was responsible for the stock taking and mapping in the project. And yeah, Manfred, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Marianne. So I have the opportunity to present you very briefly the methodology, how we try to produce some basic information that would be of use to the later subsequent process in visioning, roadmap development and implementation in all the 3 territories. And so this was the mapping of R&I ecosystem in the territories, as this task was called. So very briefly, what are R&I ecosystem anyway? So Mario has already described it in an amazing detail what ecosystems are about. The metaphor comes from environmental sciences, as you know, and it reflects the complex interplay of many, many different players in a region, from academia, from the public sector, from business, and what Mario has also pointed out, it's the humans that are important here. So as we can use them and so on. And if you want to map and if you want to create tangible information about this interaction, you have to look at data. And so one of the methods to look at interactions is to look at networks of research, technology and innovation and so on, and also how public policy can support and improve these interactions. So how did we do this, say, empirical mapping approach? In our concept, we defined 5 different dimensions, I would say. So we looked first at the socioeconomic profile of the different regions. We did an institutional mapping, so we identified important stakeholders that would be addressed then in the visioning processes and so on, and to involve the right people and so on from the relevant institutions, both from policy, research, society, civil society organizations and so on. And then we have 3 different dimensions on the type of knowledge that we would look at. So one is the knowledge creation aspect, so that's what's being done in research and so on. Another aspect is about knowledge exchange. And then the third one is technology development. So we try to collect information from different sources, and I will not go into details of the results because we have produced 200 plus pages of reports about the characteristics of the three territories. So I just give you a very brief example, and the first one would be about knowledge creation. In this case, I would like to look at the situation in Grand Est. So this is scientific production related to digitalization in Grand Est. So this is based on scientific papers that come from this region during the last 3 years, say 18 to 20. And what you can see here is from all the scientific output, 6% roughly are at the center of digitalization. So the automation, control, information systems, artificial intelligence, theory methods, telecoms, and so on. And what you can see in this diagram is how these scientific disciplines are embedded in the total scientific production of Grand Est. So you can see a network of bubbles here. These bubbles represent scientific disciplines, and the blue ones are these digitalization disciplines. And what you can see here on the northeast part of this network, there is a cluster of digital disciplines. But what you can also see is that they are embedded and linked to many other disciplines. So, for instance, neuroimaging, if you can spot it, computer science, medical imaging, remote sensing, and those topics. So this is an information that we produced for all of the territories so that we can see the specialization also of the scientific production. Next, I will come to the topic of the knowledge transfer and the knowledge exchange. And here I have an example from Styria. What you can see here is an analysis of science industry research taken from European projects, so Horizon 2020 projects that were conducted with Styrian partners. So we have 300-something projects with Styrian partners, and as you can see, more than 50% of those projects are in industrial leadership or in transport sector, smart, green, integrated transport. So this gives you already an impression of the specialization of Styrian science industry collaboration and knowledge transfer. Next slide is about the details of these collaborations here. I give you a brief interpretation of this, so please focus on the green bubbles here. These are the Styrian organizations. So you can see a green bubble that is Styrian industry. That's the green bubble more in the north here. And what this network tells you is that the Styrian players are really well connected with the outside world, so with Europe mainly, but if you look more closely into it, for instance, Styrian industry is closely linked to German industry, Spanish industry, French industry, Italian industry. Styrian universities are linked to research organizations, French, Spanish, Dutch, Belgian, and German universities, and so on. And also, I would like to underline the fact that the purple bubbles are virtually spread all over the place. So universities are not only producing knowledge, but they are also an important intermittent player in this network. The next example is on the institutional part. So this is a different kind of network. So the green bubbles you can see here are organizations from the region Värmland. They are implementing RIS3 initiatives, so regional innovation strategy, implementations of the smart specialization strategy that comes down from the European Commission. But as you can see here, that they are not only acting in their own region, but they are also acting in neighboring regions. For instance, these are the red bubbles, the orange bubbles. You can see the other neighboring Swedish regions where these organizations are active. And even on the bottom, you have a couple of Norwegian territories where they are also active. So this tells us that say, interaction is not confirmed to territories and to regions within their own right, but they are also connected to the outside world. That's especially relevant for small regions like Värmland. Then I come to one last example here, and this is about technological specialization. So this, for instance, shows that Styria, this is the green bar to the right, has a very strong specialization in semiconductors. So I have to underline that this is not about the strength of the region in this domain, but the specialization. So if a region is low in specialization, this does not mean that the activities are weak in this region, but that there are also other important domains that are in this region. So now I come to my last slide, if I may. I collected some stylized facts that digitalization is already a major concern in the 3 territories that we looked at. But ICT technologies in these traditional regions, as we have selected them, are underrepresented. But digitalization is already driven by industry. One exception maybe is that Karlstad University is an important player, and they have a deep focus on societal impact. But everything is very well clustered already, and also the smart specialization implementations are sufficiently, I would say, developed there. And with this, I would thank you for your attention here and give back to Marianne.
Thank you. We have a very tense program, and therefore we have to stick to our minutes. And thank you, Manfred, so much. So, and now I introduce Vincent Boly. He is a professor on the University Lorraine in Nancy, and he's the co-founder of the engineering school dedicated to innovation. And he has a lot of experience in collaboration from a scientific point of view with industry and SMEs. They can really do it. We can learn a lot from them. He talks about the practices he worked out in the project. Please.
Thank you very much, Marianne. As you understand, we now, in this DigiTeRRI program, try to help territories to have a new vision of what could be digitalization on the territory. So we really want to work for the territories and with the territories. Dr. Drobics highlights the fact that you can't do any digitalization without collaboration. So when you want to collaborate with people, you have to get data. That's what demonstrates Manfred. So you need data about your customers, but you need also to have a better understanding of the needs of your users that you are targeting. So that's why we have this task with all my colleagues in DigiTeRRI, trying to have a better understanding of the needs of the ecosystem in the territories. So what we have done, we have studied the practices, the current practices the initial practices of the people in the territories trying to develop the digitalization of their territory. And we try to have a better understanding of their ambition. What do they want to do? What kind of results are they looking for? And then trying to understand if they integrate RRI concepts during these practices. So we collect information about this ecosystem, and we find out 36, let's say, good practices. And as you understand, we want to transform them into best practices. So 36 practices that and we get some categories. We have 10 categories. The first one is about strategy. It means that in each territory, the ecosystem has formalized a political program about digitalization. Then we have the problem of infrastructure. Digitalization requires some fiber, some networks, some, let's say, very hard infrastructure. And the third domain we observe is that in all the territories, the ecosystem supply, especially young children, with computers to help the new generation to adopt digitalization. Then we have a lot of new programs about education, about, let's say, human aspect of digitalization, but also about technology, just like IT/OT, Internet of Objects, and so on. There are a lot of research about digitalization and technologies in all the territories. We have also these new platform, technical platform. Most of them are concerning Industry 4.0, and we have also a lot of Fab Labs. As already said by Manfred, there are a lot of clustering dynamics. We also have some new approach about the development of digitalization, digital services, and with the integration of users. For example, in some big cities, in big public administration. We have a lot of pooling of service initiatives, and we have also some associations that try to promote freeware, let's say, to fight against Google and Microsoft. And so, understanding what are the people already doing for digitalization was very helpful to build, after all, a new vision of digitalization. We tried to understand the ambition of the people. Why are they doing all these activities in these 10 domains? And so we use a maturity level model, trying to understand what kind of, let's say, skills all these ecosystems try to develop, and trying to understand their leverage, how they act in practice on the territory. And so we have these 6 domains with, to be very simple, to sum up, let's say, the ecosystem try to work with top managers about their leaderships, governance, the way, the procedure to develop digitalization, about the skills of general people in the society, and they work about technology and products and value chains. It's, let's say, the technical aspect, the technical leverages. And then we get these elements. We ask people in territories to describe the current situation and then their ambition. As you can see, the ambition is very high because in all the domain of digitalization, they want to improve the skills of the people. They do not only want to work on new products, helping companies to adopt new technologies, they also want to improve the skills of all the people in the society. Okay, so we get this very complex systems understanding of the ambition of the people. And so it's very useful for us because we understand that what the people want is a global approach about digitalization. And then it's very important to understand because we are working on RI and we want to understand if the people are aware about the possibilities to get an impact on the responsiveness level of people that take decision about the future digitalization. And so we try to understand and we ask people, are there some objective, let's say objective in terms of responsiveness? And so as you can see, there is some elements that are taken account by people in the territories. For example, privacy measures about personal data, the protection of personal data, the contribution. Thank you, Marianne. It's not digital. And we can observe a very intensive academic contribution. It needs that the people like my team, we are often involved in the digitalization process of territories. It's the role of academia. But you can see that we still have some problems about responsiveness. For example, in the scientific domain, people working on digitalization do not integrate trainings and high-level trainings. One other aspect is about the engagement of politicians. It's very strange. Elected people, elected representatives are not always integrate in very important action about digitalization. So some kind of problem of democracy is emerging. So to sum up all what we have observed in territories, we can say that very interesting, people collaborate. It's not one structure having a project. People are collaborating on all over the territories. And one thing very interesting is that we have some overlapping dynamic. It means that people in the ecosystem do not specialize on a type of users. Academia doesn't work only with students. So there is an overlapping. It means that if you have a problem of digitalization, you have a lot of people to talk with. Another aspect, very important, is that we have to have a better understanding of the needs of the people in the territories to get this transition in terms of skills and integrate this approach in terms of skills. Then, if you understand, what we have done is to get data with Manfred about the people. Then we have a better understanding of the needs of the people with this particular task. And then we are able to build a new vision through our roadmap. We are able to improve the current activities. And we are also, through DigiTeRRI, able to propose new practices in the territories to develop digitalization. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Vincent. Now I have to introduce Jens Ørding Hansen. He is a senior researcher from the Nordland Research Institute in Bodø in Norway, far in the north. He has a doctoral degree in international management, is interested in cooperative governance, cooperative finance, and also in regional development, and he has gained a lot of experience during these projects in RRI. And he is presenting the framework we have in DigiTeRRI. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Marianne. How does this work?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the so-called common framework that we have in DigiTeRRI. So this is something that so you can also read about in a report we made, which is called Framework for RI Implementation in the RNI ecosystems of the 3 territories in DigiTeRRI. So this is publicly available. And so what is this framework about? Well, this framework is sort of an umbrella term for different kinds of theoretical and methodological work that we did in the first phase of the DigiTeRRI project. So before we started the more practical work with the territories and the stakeholders and so on, we made first this framework, which contains, first of all, the methodology that we used, which is road mapping, which you will hear more about very soon, I think from my colleague Andrea and also others later. But also, sort of, we have a collection of concepts and assumptions and methods related to RI, which sort of serve the purpose of having a shared language that we can use inside the consortium and also when working with the stakeholders. So that is the purpose of this framework. So the road mapping methodology, I will not talk much about that right now because that will be discussed later by others. But another interesting, I think, component that we have in this framework is an analysis of the relationship between digitalization and RI. So when a region increases its digital maturity, what are the consequences of that for RI? Does it make it easier or harder to practice RI? What are the challenges and opportunities? So we did an analysis of that, which I will talk about in a moment. And some of the key theoretical concepts that underpin the methodology we use in DigiTeRRI are the ones you see here on this slide. So we have regional transition processes, we have regional innovation policy. So these territories in DigiTeRRI, they all follow a smart specialization strategy, which in many cases is linked directly to the elements in the roadmaps that they have developed. And RNI ecosystems, and of course digitalization and RI. The role of RI in the framework, of course, DigiTeRRI is all about RI, but RI appears in 2 different contexts in DigiTeRRI. First of all, and I think Marianne already mentioned this a bit earlier, RI in DigiTeRRI is integrated into how we work into our methodology, which is road mapping. So when we develop these roadmaps in the territories, we made sure to observe and comply with the key principles of RI, such as inclusivity, right, engaging stakeholders, different segments of society, and so on. So that is what we call RI-oriented road mapping. But also, ultimately, the vision of DigiTeRRI, of course, is that territories will reach a state where they are highly digitally mature and where they also, in their RNI ecosystems, they practice RI. Right, so that is what we call RI-oriented digitalization. That is, we try to integrate RI into the destination of these efforts. You can see it here in this figure. So the idea is that territories, that's the vision, they will move from being traditional industry regions to being self-sustaining RI digitalized ecosystems. And to get there, they will follow this road mapping process where they will develop and implement roadmaps. And you can see here on this slide that RI is integrated into that process, but it's also integrated into the destination. And some of you, I think many of you already are familiar with RI, and you probably know that there are different ways of breaking down RI into component parts. Right? There are different conceptualizations of RI. And we work in DigiTeRRI with 2 different ones. So what you see here in the RI-oriented road mapping, the principles that we observe are those 4 ones, which are ones that you often see in the more academic literature on RI, right, which says that you need to be inclusive, you need to be anticipative, and so on. But also, we have another breakdown of RI into these 5 components, which is something that is more practical and which has been championed by the European Commission. Right? So we follow those, so gender equality, science education, public engagement, ethics, and open access. So this is something that's more concrete, and therefore we feel highly relevant for the practical work with stakeholders. And that's why we use that RI breakdown there. So, yeah, so I'm going to say a little bit about this analysis we did of the relationship between digitalization and RI. So what we find is that when you digitalize in a region, that will greatly increase both the opportunities and also the challenges for practicing RI. So there's it's kind of a double-edged sword. Digitalization is a double-edged sword for RI. It's a coin with 2 sides, so to speak. If you look at the subject of ethics, you can see that when you go from having a low digital maturity to a high level of digital maturity, that will greatly increase your opportunities for being transparent, right? Because you have digital data and you can share this data and you can disseminate information much more easily than in the pre-digital stage. But on the other hand, it also gives you opportunities to disseminate disinformation, right? Or data can get stolen and so on much more easily in a digitalized world. So that's what I mean when I say that there are 2 sides to this coin. Same thing with, for example, gender equality. With digitalization, that makes it easier to target particular demographics, for example, women in recruitment activities or other activities. But it also makes it easier to discriminate against those groups, right? You have these advanced digital technologies that can be used for discrimination as well. So again, opportunities, but also challenges for RI. And the same goes for the other 3 areas: open access, science education, public engagement. For example, public engagement, as I think you've all had experience during the pandemic of all the things that can be done with digital communication tools. It's much easier to conduct activities online. But on the other hand, it might also exclude some groups, for example, senior citizens who don't have digital skills, right? They might actually be at a disadvantage because of digitalization. They might not be consulted in research and innovation. So that is the main takeaway from this analysis, which you can also read much more about in the report if you're interested. Yeah, that was it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jens. And now I introduce Andrea Kasztler. She works for the AIT Innovation Systems and Policy. She will give you an insight how we did the road mapping and how we designed this road mapping. He has a doctoral degree in technical physics, and he also works now in thematic and collaborative analysis of research. Andrea, the stage is yours.
Hello, good morning, everybody. Yeah, there has been said already a lot about the DigiTeRRI road mapping process by Marianne, and also Jens told you a lot about it. So I have the same slide. You've just seen it, showed by Jens. This is the common framework for the DigiTeRRI project, and Jens explained you about how it was focused on RRI keys on the one hand, and also on the RRI process elements on the other hand. And I will focus now more on these process elements. So how did we integrate these elements into the process to achieve that traditional industry regions do their transformation into self-sustaining R&I digitalized ecosystems. So you have already heard about the first step. Manfred told you about the mapping, the stock taking. This was the first phase, and based on these new insights, because the territories, they know themselves the best, but now they had also an outside view. So they got facts and figures through the mapping and got new insights how the region could also be seen by figures. So this was taken, and then the visioning started. And on the next slide, I show you in the background a picture of a stakeholder workshop during COVID times. Brigitte is smiling. You recognize yourself. Yeah, everybody sitting there with the masks and having distance, so it was a little bit challenging in these times. But what I'm trying to say is that it was a crucial element in the project, providing the basis for collaboration between stakeholders from different backgrounds. So as Marianne pointed out already, it's important to have discussions between representatives from industry, from civil society, from public authorities, and also science and education. And they all worked together and first of all worked on a common vision for their territories. So this was done in each of the 3 territories. The first step was creating a vision. The second one, to get deeper into goals and objectives. And then what about concrete actions in the territories? So this is the result from these visioning workshops in the 3 territories. We will also have a session on art. Yeah, they are put here also. And there will be a session on art supporting this process. So as you can see, Mario from We Do created also these beautiful sketches for the visions, but it's important to point out that the visioning process was very important, not only to have the vision itself that guided the further process, but also the creation, the co-creation of this vision was a very important element. And each vision is sketched graphically, but also there is a describing narrative that has been co-created by the participants and the representatives of the territories. So, and the next question was, so after the visioning, so the creation of the roadmap started, and there were some conceptual questions at the beginning. So you have already heard about the common framework. And so the challenge was how to define objectives that fit into this framework so they would promote digital transformation, promote RRI, involve all stakeholder groups, address the formulated visions, and also address a broad spectrum of action fields, so to make sure that at the end we won't end up with only technological improvements, for example, to focus only on one aspect. So this was very important for us, and we tried to identify concepts in literature for this, but we found out there is literature on focusing on the firm level. So, and we needed to apply this for territories. So you've heard also from Vincent about domains already. So we tried to integrate what we found here, and also to integrate the different views from the 3 territories, because they are all, of course, they are different, and to put this into one framework. Micro, sorry. Thank you, Marianne. And yeah, and so we, at the end, we created this concept for the road mapping domains. So you see again the 4 stakeholder groups arranged around. So it's important to have this in mind all the time to address these different groups also for the objectives and the actions. And we said, okay, when the roadmaps are created, this will be done in these 8 roadmap domains. And they were put to this matrix. So we have the roadmap domains on the one hand and the stakeholder groups on the others. So we have 7, right? Yeah, we skipped one. We had 8 at the beginning, but ended up with 7 of them. It was very important for us to highlight also culture and values. So we have the RRI aspects, especially here, and also if we integrate an innovation ecosystems concept, so it's very important to address, thank you, Marianne, the aspects of networks and collaboration. This was the, these domains guided the collection of the main goals and objectives in the stakeholder workshops. And after this, each main goal was defined specifically. There were questions, so what is the goal, which gaps can be identified, and which activities could help to close these gaps, and which timeline is seen. And also who feels responsible to address and start these activities. And what you see here is an example for an action plan in a reporting system that has been created here to monitor the implementation of the actions. So in each territory, as Marianne has said already, 12 actions are taking place, and they are monitored in this system. So to make it easy to follow the implementation and to make sure that digitalization is on its way. So I'm finished here, and you will hear more about the different roadmaps in the 3 territories. They will be compared in the next talk. Thank you.